I had no idea at the time, but one night out in Mexico would rewrite the way that I think about fear forever. On this particular night, I'm at a bar. It's pretty much the unofficial capital between bold schemes and craziness. I'm with two guys that I met earlier that day at a leadership networking event, Felipe and Antonio. These guys are absolute business legends and adventurous spirits. They're the kind of guys that will absolutely fan the flames of your wild ideas after a couple tequilas. We're laughing, sharing stories, and one of them looks at me and says, "Josh, what do you think about sailing across the Atlantic Ocean with us in a couple of months?" I've never sailed, not once. And when you're with people that dream big and act fast, you don't exactly lead with your limitations. So I said, half serious, half joking, you know what would be really interesting? What if we found a way to strap a bike onto the deck of the ship and I'll cycle across the sea while you sail? You could hear the sound of deeply questionable decision-making settling over the table. But surprisingly, they're into it. And in near unison, we look at each other and say, why not? That was it. That was the moment that I started to learn a new language. A language that, despite only having 2 words, changes everything. And this is a language that we all need. We don't need it someday. We don't need it later. We need it now. Because people doing the impossible aren't fearless. They're fluent. And why not? And I'm going to help you become fluent as well. Now, it turns out when we don't have the language of why not, it comes with a cost. Psychologist Tom Gilovich and negotiation expert Victoria Medvick found in a long-term study on regret published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology that over time, 84% of people regret not the things that they did, but the things that they didn't do. Folks, that is brutal. Let's sink in on that number a little bit. 84% of us are regretting the things that we never even try. And fear comes in many disguises. I mean, sometimes it's obvious. The fear of heights, the fear of standing on stage and talking to a bunch of people staring at you. Sometimes it's a little more quiet, such as the hesitation before you hit send on that job resignation, or that voice telling you maybe you're not quite ready to quit that bad habit, or staying quiet when you know that you need to share a long overdue hard truth. So back on the boat. Following our path of impossible, we find a way to set up a resistance mechanism on the deck of the ship. We attach a bike to it. And I plan to cycle as many miles as the boat sails from Gran Canaria in Spain to St. Lucia across the Atlantic in the Caribbean. If I can manage to do that, that means that I'll have actually bicycled across the ocean. Now, this was way out of my depth, quite literally. I've never pictured myself to be a long-distance cyclist or a sailor, but now I'm going to be doing both in the middle of the sea. But I'd said, why not? And now I've committed. This wasn't just for a thrill, though. I was on a mission. I wanted to use this adventure to raise money for a children's charity out of Mexico. This charity is helping young children recover from accident trauma. So before we set sail, in the weeks leading up to it, I'm getting letters, videos, drawings from kids showing me support. One young boy, Danny, sent me a picture that he drew. He used pencils and his teeth to draw me a lion because he was in a car accident not long prior and no longer has the use of his arms. He wanted to show me courage, and he did. I started to learn that having a why not mindset isn't just how bold ideas begin. It's also how we survive them. It's how we endure them. Because if it wasn't for this mindset, and for the kids, fear would have taken over. There's no way I could picture myself being the person to get to the start line of this thing, let alone completing it. However, after more storms and sunburns and protein bars than anyone should have to endure, 15 wild days and 3,998 miles later, we achieve our goal. For perspective, that is the same as bicycling from Paris to London every day for 2 weeks. But we've done it. As the boat pulls up to the port in St. Lucia, the port authorities come out, took one look at my sea-beaten bike, and said, "Mate, that thing deserves to be in a museum." They weren't kidding. With permission, they asked if they could have the bike on the gimbal and all, and picture like a mechanical hammock, and they turned it into the first ever monument for a bicycle that's crossed the ocean. It still stands today in St. Lucia. So as Felipe and Antonio and I are standing there in the Bay of St. Lucia, looking at this, smiling from ear to ear, obviously with pride for what we've accomplished, I'm reconnecting with what I started to learn earlier, and that is, people doing the impossible aren't fearless. They're fluent. And why not? And like any language, fluency takes practice. By the way, this isn't just a story about a ridiculous way to cross the Atlantic. This is about a language that changes the way that we engage with the world. Imagine advancements in healthcare, in education, in your daily life. This is what you can come to expect with a bit more fluency, and why not? Here's the fluency framework I use. It's simple and it works. Notice the fear. Just look at it. You don't have to push it away. Fear actually isn't the enemy. It is an indicator that you're onto something meaningful. Name the curiosity. We are wired to look for doubt, and that's okay. But when we have the permission to flip doubt into a question, you can unlock some incredible potential. After all, many advancements on this big world that we live in have come from people being brave enough to ask a wild question out loud. Nudge the action. Not a massive leap, just a nudge to get the energy moving in the right direction. Massive doors swing on small hinges. The impossible isn't asking you to be brave, it's asking you to begin. Since coming back from St. Lucia, I've used this framework to move to Norway and start learning Norwegian. Why not? I now tell stories on stages all over the world. Why not? I stopped letting fear decide my story. Why not indeed? This is what fluency looks like. This is your invitation. Notice your fear, name your curiosity, nudge your action. I'm going to start back at the beginning. Back at that bar in Mexico, when one night out, I asked an outrageous question, and the answer was, why not? At the time, I thought it was a bit of a joke, and it turned out to be a massive open door. Your opportunity is coming. You now know that you have the ability to face it because you don't have to be fearless. You just need to be fluent enough to say, why not? Because fear doesn't speak this language, but now you do. Thank you.